Welcome to another module in our soot-free and zero-emission urban bus fleet technology transition curriculum. In this module, we'll cover pilot and demonstration projects. The two key terms that we'll come across in this module are perverse incentive and first mover advantage. Perverse incentive refers to an incentive that has an unwanted and undesirable consequence that is contrary to the intended outcome. In our context, it could mean that policies that are meant to accelerate and encourage soot-free and zero-emission bus adoption instead slow down operators' rollouts. First mover advantage is the ability of a company to perform better than its competitors as a result of being first to market in a new product category, such as soot-free or zero-emission buses. Here are the key learning objectives from this module. Understand the role of piloting for larger scale deployment of soot-free and zero-emission technologies. Understand the limitations and shortcomings of pilot and demonstration projects. Know the key steps involved in setting up a pilot program. Understand which types of data from pilot programs are most useful and relevant and how they can be collected. Identify key external stakeholders and the reason to engage with them for pilot programs to succeed. And to learn about a few notable pilot program success stories in different contexts. Why do operators need to run pilots and demonstrations? First, testing a soot-free and zero-emission bus on a small, controlled scale can reveal gaps and loopholes in regulations and can help transit authorities fix them. The performance of piloted vehicles can also tell operators if they are suitable or working as intended, and gives manufacturers an opportunity to adjust and fine-tune the specs to make sure that they meet the service requirements in terms of range, charging time, and other performance criteria. Pilots are also the ideal time to engage with infrastructure providers like utility companies and CNG suppliers, especially when the fuel changes from diesel to CNG or from CNG to batteries. This is also a good time to explore grid capacity needs, transportation, and storage of fuels. Pilot programs can also help daily operations strategies and with getting maintenance staff on board with new technologies in a gradual, non-disruptive manner. Data gathered during pilots can reveal if additional fueling or recharging is needed on a given route, and working with newer technologies can highlight areas where further training may be needed for technical staff and drivers. In a nutshell, pilot and demonstration projects enable operators to anticipate stumbling blocks and solve them before making a bigger investment down the line, so they're not aiming in the dark. To be clear, pilot programs can be a great opportunity for some operators, but for others, they are not always needed. If the technology and business models are well understood and are proven to work for operators and clients, in very similar conditions, cities could move to large-scale adoption rather than doing small pilots one at a time. Running one bus doesn't yield too much useful information regarding the technology and operations beyond what's already known from a robust fleet-wide planning analysis. Modeling simulation tools are also becoming more reliable to give some of the information only available through running actual buses from before. As long as the bus's technology and specs have been tested elsewhere, vehicle simulation tools can be calibrated to give very accurate energy consumption and operations outputs, which makes pilot programs less necessary. The advantage of using vehicle simulation is that data is available for multiple routes and bus technologies, whereas implementing pilots on a large scale can be too costly and time-consuming for some operators. Running pilots can also slow the momentum of soot-free and zero-emission urban bus technology transitions, and if they can be rolled out faster, redundant pilot programs should not delay the process. The first operator to take a leap of faith and invest in a new technology in the market will likely be the one that stumbles upon undiscovered challenges. This presents a double-edged sword. On the one hand, there will be no experience dealing with unfamiliar technologies lack of regulatory and infrastructural support, and financial uncertainties. Colombia's national policies waived value-added tax and import tax on zero-emission electric buses, but operators that bought zero-emission buses still had to go through lengthy paperwork to get the refunds, which was clearly an inefficiency not discovered until the first operator made the decision to purchase and pilot zero-emission buses. Subsequent operators enjoyed an optimized and streamlined policy that the first mover helped fix. Here, a perverse incentive was created, and some operators could be risk-averse and wait for others to take the initiative instead. But being the first mover also has its advantages, especially in cities, regions, and countries where pressure is mounting for operators to renew their fleet to meet more stringent emission standards or even achieve zero emissions. Early starters will also be the ones that discover opportunities to streamline processes, and this knowledge can become a commercial service that can be sold to other operators down the line. What does a robust and successful pilot program entail? The critical elements include a clearly defined scale and timeline to deliver results, while keeping in mind that the process can be iterative and results will emerge gradually. So having some room for flexibility is necessary. The pilot will also establish data collection methods and deploy tools to obtain the most relevant performance data of new soot-free and zero-emission buses for evaluation and comparison. A robust pilot program is one that works with people within and outside the organization to familiarize them with new technology, infrastructure, and operational challenges. In the next few slides, we will go over each aspect of what makes a robust pilot and demonstration program. Pilots and demonstrations should not be entirely open-ended. Pilot testing is one step towards the fleet-wide adoption of a new technology, so going into the pilot program, operators should have clear expectations of the number of buses and routes to experiment new technologies with and for how long. This will depend on funding availability and if manufacturers are willing to supply the tested vehicles for free. If enough funding is available, it is always a better idea to test multiple buses of different models on different routes that will likely undergo technology transition. Pilot and demonstration projects should not last more than 2 years to keep the momentum for broader technology transition. Time is limited with trial buses, so the maintenance, infrastructure, and business models side of things should be planned simultaneously to be ready for the bus's delivery. As an opportunity for trial and error, it is equally important to budget for a flexible piloting process that considers emerging results and lessons learned and adapt to changing circumstances, policy incentives, etc. There are sometimes factors outside of the operators or even cities' control that may delay the process of pilot and demonstration programs, like policy and regulation at the national level. A case in point is in Indonesia, where electric buses could only carry water canisters during initial month of a pre-trial because there were no regulations that would certify electric buses to carry passengers on public roads. That hindrance was eventually resolved, and Transjakarta, the Indonesian capital's bus rapid transit system, was able to make more inroads into mass deployment. After establishing baseline performance and modeling projections, operators will already have some idea of what running newer technology buses on predetermined routes will be like. Pilot and demonstration projects are an opportunity to test buses and collect empirical performance data. For that to happen, the pilot program needs to start by establishing a data collection mechanism. This is critically important because data management systems on board buses from different OEMs are sometimes proprietary and not compatible with software from third-party infrastructure providers. This presents both a challenge and an opportunity. Data incompatibility will hinder analysis and evaluation of performance across vehicles, especially when operators are testing more than one manufacturer's products. For battery electric zero-emission buses, the supplied equipment of charging stations should also be able to share and transmit data with onboard computers. One example is Santiago, where the local operator negotiated with Chinese bus maker BYD to make them compatible with the European CCS2 standards, to make sure all data transfer from different brands of buses and the EVSE is not an issue. If there are different data protocols and interfaces, pilot programs are a good time to discover discrepancies and harmonize them. This involves working with manufacturers of buses and infrastructure providers and agreeing on data sharing policies. Bus operators should own the performance data of piloted buses so they can run independent analysis without interference from OEMs. Once there is a strong and transparent mechanism set up for data collection, the next step is to gather relevant performance data from buses that are being tested. This figure is from the US National Renewable Energy Laboratory's analysis of battery electric buses in operation in Foothill Transit Agency. The scale of their BEB operations is similar to pilot programs in larger cities, and the data that they are collecting from their buses are what transit operators could replicate. Data shown here compares key performance metrics across three types of buses, from basic operation statistics like mileage and fuel economy, to reliability metrics like vehicle availability rate and miles between road calls, to a breakdown of maintenance costs. This level of granularity is very useful for operators to understand the strength and shortcomings of each technology and product in the context of their own daily operations. Operators should also test buses under different conditions, with variable passenger loads on multiple road surfaces and in different weather conditions. Real-world performance of new products will likely differ from what manufacturers advertise or theoretical simulations can show. This is also where having more than one bus of testing may help. A successful demonstration and pilot project involves several stakeholder groups. The first group is the vehicle manufacturers. They supply the buses, and many are using pilots as opportunities to promote their products, with the expectation that a successful pilot could translate into an order of dozens of buses, if not more. In some cases, the OEMs are happy to finance the buses and lend them to operators, sometimes circulating the bus from one operator to the next and from city to city on demonstration tours. In other cases, especially when a pilot is more extensive than a singular bus, OEMs will expect someone else, be it the operator themselves or other entities, to purchase buses for pilots. Who bears the cost will depend on the business and financing model, which will be covered in the next module. Once the buses are on the road being tested, OEMs will provide technical support and services, facilitate access to bus operations data, and even make changes to configurations and specifications that are necessary to meet performance goals. Infrastructure service providers are also an important group to coordinate with. If the piloted buses use a different source of energy, like from diesel to CNG or to battery electric, it will be necessary to contact new utility providers and fuel suppliers. Some of the to-do list items will include the installation of distribution equipment and facilities, negotiation of service costs and energy prices, ensuring steady supply of refueling and recharging services, and preparing them for bigger deployment down the line. Within the transit operator itself, drivers may need to learn new driving styles to maximize range and fuel efficiency. Maintenance workers in depots and garages will need to learn to maintain new systems and possibly work under different risks, high voltage for DC fast charging battery electric buses, or hydrogen refueling for hydrogen fuel cell buses, for example. For CNG buses, there may be updated safety regulations and requirements, for example, no refueling in underground basement depots for CNG buses. To illustrate some of the points we mentioned, let's quickly go over the pilot and demonstration of zero-emission buses in Santiago. Since 2017, Santiago's public transit system, Trans Santiago, known now as RED, went through a few successful pilots of new battery electric buses and business models with two private operators before expanding the scale of battery electric bus operations. One of them was Medbus, which partnered with Enel, an Italian utility company, and BYD, a Chinese bus manufacturer, to bring two electric 12-meter BYD buses to operate under regular service in Santiago. The two buses ran for a year with 5 trained drivers on Route 516, which takes approximately 4 to 4.5 hours to complete. Over the year, they covered 105,981 kilometers and moved more than 350,000 passengers with an availability ratio of 99.23%. The pilots helped Medbus understand the operating costs and energy consumption of the new battery electric buses. It also precipitated a new business model when it came to scaling up the operations. NLX acted as the financial agent and energy provider and leased the buses to Medbus for 10 years. Medbus, in turn, operates the buses and provides basic maintenance, while BYD oversees more important maintenance operations, including battery packs and electric drivetrains. A similar partnership was led by Engie, a French utility company with operations in Chile, and Guildmeister, a local automobile dealer, who launched a Yutong 12-meter low-floor bus pilot in Santiago, operated by operator Buses View, between December 2017 and May 2018. Again, the pilot was a time to test the technology as well as proof of concept for a new business and ownership model. Engie ended up financing an additional 100 buses and worked with operators Buses View and STP. Let's wrap up today's module by reviewing the key messages. Pilot programs help operators identify barriers and build confidence in the new technology transition. Operators that are the first to adopt a technology can enjoy an early start, but are also subject to risks. Pilot programs provide time for operators to engage with bus manufacturers, infrastructure providers, and familiarize their own staff with new technologies. A strong pilot program sets the tone for deployment at large by having a defined scale, establishing consistent data collection mechanisms, collecting and evaluating performance data and relevant for technology and operations optimization, and working closely with key stakeholders. And here are the references and additional resources about pilot and demonstration projects. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at y.xie@theicct.org. Thank you. Research and development of this curriculum is supported by Climate and Clean Air Coalition, the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety International Climate Initiative, and Partnering for Green Growth and the Global Goals 2030.